Cross Politic begins in 3, 2, 1.
I have a heart that breaks for a dying city.
Stop cursing your future.
Is not true.
For all intents and purposes, I am a woman.
No government, no political system has ultimate supremacy. Jesus is King of Kings, and it's about time our nation return in humble submission to his lordship.
You are not protecting women. You are authorizing the destruction of 500,000 little women every year.
But I didn't start it. But sir, with all due respect, that's the argument of a 5-year-old. I didn't start it.
Right, when the Spirit comes upon people, they go to war. They go to battle, and the enemies of God are driven back, and they're slaughtered.
You are listening to Cross Politic with Gabe Wrench, the Water Boy, Pastor Toby Sumter, and the Chocolate Knox.
Hello, y'all. Welcome from the chimney in Idaho. Thank you for joining Cross Politic today.
And that chimney is smoking.
Yes, it is. Literally.
Well, at least this room is.
The chimney in Idaho. That's right.
Well, happy Memorial Day.
Yes.
Right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes. I sat next to a Vietnam vet on the way home from Virginia on Saturday.
Is that what that loud conversation was about?
Yeah. Yeah.
You guys, did he play football too?
No, that was
Was he from Texas?
That was a Bahamian that I met going from Virginia to Charlotte. The Vietnam veteran was the guy I sat on the plane going from Phoenix to Spokane.
Did you share the gospel with anybody?
So, no, I didn't.
Oh.
I was tired. Maybe now you make me feel bad. No, the Bahamian, he was a Christian. The Bahamian guy, he moved his family to Liberty so they could go to the Christian school there and the college.
Oh, wow.
In Lynchburg?
Yeah.
Oh, to Liberty University.
There's Liberty Academy, which is this Christian school there.
Okay, and then
there's the university, and he works in the Bahamas,
right?
And
he still works in the Bahamas.
So he goes back and works and then comes home. And
does he baptize his babies?
Hurricane season, I don't know. We didn't get that far. Yeah.
You know what? That's usually my second question.
And I don't feel about that one.
It kind of sounds like he might be in a little bit of a cage stage.
Yeah, it's possible. Right? I've heard that before. Yeah, I just think that reflects badly on you guys. Not me.
Oh man. Watch out.
I just want to remind our listeners to make sure you guys are checking out our blogazine. We got some great
articles.
We got
I can't keep up with them.
I know.
You guys are cranking them.
We got a really good managing editor, and she is on top of it. Rachel Seaborn, thank you so much.
Shout out to Rachel.
Yeah, Rachel's awesome. Jason Farley, Rhett Burns, Moses
Bratrude, Ben Zorns,
Ben Zorns. Yep. Luke Dickinson,
Pastor Toby Sumter.
Yep, Pastor's gonna be right.
Get him to write for us somehow.
Chalk Knox eventually.
What?
Chocolate.
Oh, y'all don't want to read my stuff.
We're all gonna eventually be writing for this. He
was just telling me earlier today how he's all into the Chicago rule manual for writing. Like he's all into that. Like Chicago manual.
Almost got me kicked out of seminary the first year. What is this? My professor's looking at my paper. We don't allow crown on the papers now. You can't write your name in crown. Like, what? That's not Chicago. It's a Chicago crown.
It was like Chicago style. Like, is that South Side or is that?
It took me forever to try to figure out what are they talking about.
It's like, honey, they're doing gang stuff over there at the seminary.
I remember the first time I turned the paper, I sent it to my pastor first. And I said, hey, would you just proof this for me? I remember getting it back and all I saw was red. It was just nothing but red. He's like, Knox, I think you got a calling on your life, but you can't write. You're going to have to learn. So I remember getting he sent me 3 grammar books, changed my life. So it hasn't helped my English much, but writing I can get a little
bit. You're coming along.
I realized there were rules to this thing. I was like, oh, okay. I see. Periods. Nice.
So guys, hold on. We got Matt Walsh coming on.
Yes.
Matt Walsh. For our interview today.
I did not know he was as young as he was.
30 years old.
He's 30 years old.
I was like, man, I started a blog 5 times.
And and he even sounds like he's 50.
Yeah.
You hear his voice. It's like when we called him, before everybody gets to hear the interview, you talk to him and it sounds like just an old man. I'm like, oh, this guy's 48.
Yeah.
No, I think he was pretty young. I know he's quite that young.
Yeah. I saw a video that he posted kind of about the whole Islam, terrorism. He posted a 3-minute video of that on Twitter and I looked at him like, this guy's a pup.
I know, yeah.
Now I know I'm getting old when I start calling somebody else a pup.
Right.
Like, really?
I know.
30-year-old
Absolutely.
guy.
Yep.
I love it though.
Yeah.
It's great. I can't wait.
Super fun discussion with Matt. So hang on to that. To get into cross-politic news, let me start with this this video here, okay?
Oh, man.
Uh-oh.
You are graduating at a time when there is a full-fledged assault on truth and reason.
Praise Hillary?
Just log on.
We're just gonna stop right there. That's all I can handle from that one.
Amen.
So Hillary Clinton is speaking at her alma mater, which is Wellesley College.
Would you say that again?
Wellesley College.
It's in Texan.
And yeah, in Texan, some sort of translation. You guys Google it. And
just spell it for us.
Texanese.
I can't spell it either. And it just oh man, this bothered me so much because this is the party who kills the unborn. This is the party who accepts any form of marriage, basically. Yeah. Or they're gonna. Polygamy's coming. They have to. This is the party who believes the Earth is 6.4 billion years old.
That's right.
You know, this and
all of those things are constantly changing.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's right. It's not fixed.
Yeah. Right. I mean, the Clintons were saying only a decade or two ago or whatever that that's right. Marriage is between one man and one woman.
That's right.
Bill Clinton signed
DOMA.
Yeah,
Defense of Marriage Act. DOMA. DOMA.
Right. What happened to that truth? What happened to that truth?
Well, over time.
Yeah, so, like, Hillary, what is truth?
That's what I was just going to say, like.
What is truth?
It's fun. It's great that you're saying that, and I agree with you, but I don't think that means what you think it means.
Right. You keep saying that.
You keep saying that, but, what is truth? This is another thing, too, that, reading Matt Walsh's book, he was talking about the truth, right? Like, that was really, like, we need to be able, I think it was at the last chapter was how do we win a war that's already lost, and it's like, we just got to be proclaiming the truth. And one of the things that, not just proclaiming truth, we need to define it. Yeah. And one of the things that we need to define truth as is that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, right? Like, we need to define truth in Jesus, not just there's this floating truth out there. No, it is directly rooted in Christ.
Yeah, right.
And it flows from him. And if you don't have Christ, then your truth, you don't have truth.
Right.
And so that's one of the things, too, is like, while we're proclaiming the truth, you have to proclaim Christ as the truth, and what Christ says on the subject. So that's one of the things too that, well, she's definitely not going to do that.
Yeah.
She's not going to hang her flag there. Like,
did she quote a Bible verse in that speech?
Yeah. For everything that's moving, how do you come to truth?
Right.
And that's another thing too, is that while we're proclaiming truth, people, there isn't a way for people to get to truth apart from Jesus either, right? You can't just all of a sudden put this truth out there and all of a sudden this truth just sits on people's ears and it convinces them and they move their position towards yours. It doesn't happen like that. We're dealing with a heart issue. That's why we have to preach Jesus, right?
Right. And related to that, though, is also is a certain kind of a prioritization to truth. So there are fundamental things about reality, the way that God made the world, and there are bigger blocks and smaller blocks. So the fact that grass is green is true.
Right.
And that's part of the way God made the world. And obviously, if there was a great movement to say, no, grass is actually gray or pink or, whatever, then, we'd need to address that.
People do paint their lawns.
But
I'm serious.
In Moscow? Do they do that in Idaho?
It's normally in California where the grass can be a little browner.
Yeah, right.
Well, what makes you think that it should be green?
But my point, my point is, boys,
don't be so narrow-minded.
But it's when they start saying a boy is not a boy,
right?
A girl is not a girl, marriage is not marriage, then they're attacking certain building blocks of reality.
Yeah.
And if that's all grounded in Jesus Christ, he is the word in which all things cohere and exist. He upholds all things. But they're attacking those basic building blocks of reality.
Yep.
And then if you just have this sort of vague notion that the truth is out there.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
The Scully and what's the what's that show?
I don't know. I don't watch TV. I pray.
The truth is out there. You know that one?
Yeah, but
we're gonna have a listener who can write in and tell us.
Hey, if you want to win a Cross Politic t-shirt, which, by the way, we do have at crosspolitic.com.
Yes, please check it out.
Swag plug. And get you some of that Cross Politic coffee.
Yeah.
It's good.
Because it'll help you know the truth.
Didn't we just
Ooh, that's right. Sovereignty blend. Sovereignty blend.
It'll help you know the truth. When you're waking up in the morning and you don't remember the truth,
drink some cross-politic coffee.
I'm going to pull a charismatic.
There's a commercial in there.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I dare 3 people right now to buy some cross-politic coffee and send it to Hillary Clinton. I dare 3 people to get up right now.
That would be awesome.
Buy some cross-politic swag and send it to Hillary Clinton.
I got you some truth.
Awesome.
Get her some truth right now.
Truth.
See her wear that hat. So related to this, there's an article actually. USA Politics Today covered some of this, and there's a movement going on. People, some of the liberals are frustrated with Trump wanting to construct a wall, and build a wall, and they're arguing that it's just an extension of his penis. So the wall is an extension of his penis.
Can we say that on?
Yeah, we can. An expression of patriarchal rape culture. So the wall is. That's what the wall is.
Where is this?
This is in USA Politics Today. So USA Today, their politics.
Wow.
Yep. And so this is a quote from a Washington sophomore.
Did you edit the quote so that it, if we have kids that are like 13 years old who are listening to the show, their parents won't say, "What are you saying on cross politics?" Did you?
Yeah, well, I mean,
okay.
the quotes,
I don't know what you're going to say. It just scares me right now. That's what they're.
We live in this world.
Okay. Yeah. No, I'm just saying. Show Baraka.
There's MTV. There's USA Today.
That's true.
There's Facebook.
Don't you have a thing on language?
There's cross politics.
So yeah,
did you write a blog on language? Okay.
I did.
So I'm not done. And so he basically is arguing that the wall is an extension of Trump and his private parts, and that it's just it's all about patriarchal rape culture, and so he's talking about castrating his penis.
Oh no!
Right. So there's this movement. It's not really a movement.
Castrating whose penis?
His own. Like, and if Trump builds the wall, I'm going to castrate my penis because it's all connected to the rape culture, and I want to be against that. And so,
actually, the Apostle Paul said something about this in Philippians about the Judaizers.
Yeah, it's Galatians.
Yeah, that's if they want to be more righteous. Go ahead.
Right. In Philippians, he calls them dogs and mutilators of the flesh. In his Galatians, he says,
I want you to cut it all.
If they want you to be righteous, go ahead and cut the whole thing off.
Yeah, right.
Get more righteous.
Castrate yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is the liberal culture that's on Hillary's team, right?
I think that's wonderful, actually.
You know what?
I think it's wonderful.
Yeah,
I do. I want to do it. I mean, you believe, you stand for something.
Go for it.
Because actually, that's the thing. Go back to the Hillary thing. Hillary says truth and means nothing by it.
Right.
That's right.
Means nothing by it. Yeah. But if this guy actually follows through, it's idiotic, it's insane, it's ridiculous, it's horrific.
Yeah.
But he would actually have skin in the game.
Yeah.
Literally.
Right? But that's the thing is that people don't when truth can mean anything, then it doesn't cost you anything.
He's gonna,
right? If truth can mean anything, it doesn't cost you anything.
Yeah.
But if truth is fixed anywhere, then it's going to cost you something.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
You're going to stand by it, and you're going to suffer for it.
Yeah.
Oh, he's going to suffer.
Right, I know. So that's why I said I think it's wonderful.
Great. So this
wrong, but it's wonderful.
At least he's got some skin in the game.
But it's like Muslims. It's like Islam.
Right. No,
Islam is wrong.
That's right.
Yeah.
Islam worships a false god.
That's right.
And they're blowing themselves up and they're doing horrific things.
They're taking over Dearborn, Michigan.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
It's wrong. It's horrible. It's evil. But they have more of a backbone than the left.
Yeah.
But I mean, okay, so just to push back against that a little bit, do you think that the backbone the left has as far as, how they've been able to move? One of the things that in the book with Matt Walsh, he says how the minority has begun to affect and plug the majority. So in one way, in gay marriage,
transgender,
they're a minority in all of this. Yet in some way, they're wagging America.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so in some ways,
that's because Christians don't have a backbone.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So there's what 75 100 million evangelicals here in the U.S. We are not the minority.
Right. So take what I just said.
Yep.
Hillary means nothing by it.
Yep.
Left doesn't have a backbone.
Yep.
And the Christian church has even less of a backbone.
Oh. I don't want to know what you want us to do.
Right. Let me pause right here real quick. Let me pause.
Just get baptized.
There we go.
Amen.
Hey, there's a circumcision, right? Get baptized.
Yeah. Colossians 2.
Yeah.
Colossians 2, baby.
That's right. So this might sound like changing the subject, but it's not. So Trump just released his budget this year, and I got another little video to play on this.
2018 budget. The name on the cover is the New Foundation for American Greatness.
So that's the name of the name of Trump's budget. So he just
if liberals would have did that would have been crazy. The New Foundation for American Greatness. If liberals would have came out with that, it was like socialism.
I don't remember ever hearing the title of a budget before.
No.
Is that like a Trump thing?
But this one's so good. No, I think they title it every year.
Do they always title
I
it?
think they do.
But Trump,
I could be wrong, but
Trump gets a lot more attention than any other president this time has.
We never get to hear the titles.
No.
From now on, though, I want to hear the titles.
I want every title.
Okay. Every budget.
Every budget from every president, I better know the title.
So let's rank them. Right now, this is the top, right? Like, maybe we should go back and find,
So in this budget,
somebody out there needs to go out there, and I want a list. I want a Wikipedia page of the titles
that's awesome.
of all of the budgets.
Absolutely.
If you want to win a free Cross Politics shirt,
send us the link to that page.
At least the last 10.
At least the last 10.
Come on, last 10.
And we got to rank them. We got to rank them.
I want to know the titles.
Who's got the best title? Well, the reason they probably don't have this kind of party over the titles is because most presidents probably don't want you knowing the budget.
I don't know,
and bringing that much attention to it.
Most of them just say Bush's budget.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Bush's budget.
Exactly.
2.
Clinton's budget. Yeah, exactly.
And what is Trump's title?
The Foundation for American.
The New Foundation for American Greatness.
There we go. Yeah, there we go. So as part of this budget, like every presidential budget, usually have some sort of cuts to come with it.
That's what people have been mostly happy about.
At some level, whether they're significant or not, most of them are not significant. But Trump's budget, he wants to cut about $855 million from the Agricultural Department. He wants to cut about $633 million from the Commerce Department. He wants to cut $4.9 billion from the Education Department. Wow. He wants to cut about $400 million from the Energy Department, Health Services, $4.8 billion from Human Health Services, Homeland Security, $235 million. House and Urban Development, $4.1 billion. I could go on.
We might need to. I want to hear. I don't want to rush through these.
I want to know what the what the balance on it all though is, because he also upped military spending. Yeah, pretty significantly.
He upped military spending. Medicaid and Medicare and social services all remained the same as what they. Social Security all remained basically. He probably gave them the standard 3% or GDP. Budget that they gain every year, because they gain every year.
I want to hear those. Maybe we can do that after we get done talking to. What, we got some more?
Just one last point. But Trump tweeted earlier today. He said, "I suggest that we add more dollars to healthcare and make it the best anywhere. Obamacare is dead. Republicans will do much better." So there you go. His budget.
Right.
It's all a matter of who's in power. Matt Walsh next on Cross Politics to talk about his new book, The Unholy Trinity. Next on Cross Politics.
Canon Press is a publishing house located in Moscow, Idaho. At Canon Press, we create and provide products that sketch a vision of the whole life, a whole culture. A life full of beauty, tradition, education, community, laughter, and celebration. Unashamed of Christ, and sharply at odds with the values of modernity. A mature culture with the church at the center, living out the good life, one family at a time. We believe our book, audio, and visual selections reflect this exciting life that God has given us under the sun. As the wisest man said, go eat your bread with joy, and drink your wine with a merry heart, for God has already accepted your works. CanonPress.com.
For 21 years and counting, New St. Andrews College has sought to obey Christ's Great Commission to disciple nations and build him a house, not just in Jerusalem, but throughout the world. Not with stones and mortar, but with living stones. We build and fight. This is the task of a Christian liberal arts college, to equip students with the tools to build and fight. And this is our joyful task as we seek to graduate leaders who shape culture through wise and victorious living. To learn more, check us out online at nsa.edu/explore.
Welcome back to Cross Politic. With us today, we're really grateful to have Matt Walsh. Matt Walsh is a writer, speaker, and one of the religious right's most influential young voices. Millions of people read his columns on The Blaze every month, and he has a new book out called The Unholy Trinity.
That's right. Yeah.
Matt, it says here something about alpacas.
and you've got to explain that.
Yeah, well, I can't explain that because that would cost you. It's a very high consultancy for my alpaca grooming tips. So I'm afraid
there you go. That's funny because
actually, I can't believe it.
One of Toby's elders owns an alpaca farm, right, Toby?
This is true. Yeah, we have alpacas. So we could quiz you on your alpaca knowledge if we really wanted to.
Well, we could definitely talk shop some other time, sure. Now, it's the bio I'm looking at says actually that you're 27. I don't know if that's true anymore, but you haven't been doing this for too long, and you're a young man. How did you break into this world of political commentary? Yeah, well, unfortunately, I have aged 3 years since that bio was written. I guess I'm 30 now, but still, I guess I certainly have. I guess you could say I'm still somewhat new to this in the last few years or so. And it started for me, really you'd have to go back to when I was 20, and I got into radio, and I did radio. At first, it was just rock radio, small time, rock station in Delaware, and I did that. And my goal was to transition into talk radio, so I did kind of a news talk, local, very small market news talk for a few years. And that's when, after 8 years of that, I started a website, started writing, and it really took off relatively quickly, which is, I think, unusual. And pretty soon that became my thing. That's what it did. It sort of took over everything else.
Right. Yeah. Now, you got this new book out, Unholy Trinity. What's that about, and why should people care about it?
Well, it's a book about the three, what I consider to certainly be the three central battlefields, the three primary battlefields of the culture war, which are life, marriage, and gender. And the Unholy Trinity refers to this kind of three-pronged assault that the left has waged on the culture by trying to redefine human life, marriage, and now, of course, we have to add gender into that. Mm. And this, look, it has seemed obvious to me for a very long time that these three issues are linked, that these are the most important issues from a cultural perspective. And I wish I could say that there were a lot of other books written about this, linking all these issues together, and so I didn't have to write it. But really, as far as I can tell, no one else had really written this book, at least recently. So that's why I wrote it, and that's why I hope some people care about it anyway.
Yeah, and the subtitle says "Blocking the Left's Assault on Life, Marriage, and Gender." What is your prescription? How should conservatives and Bible-believing Christians in particular, how are we to block this?
Yeah, well, I wish I had a 10-point plan or something like that, or
yes,
some very practical.
Please.
Yeah, it would be nice. Everybody always asks me that, and it's fairly enough because it is there in the subtitle book. But I think just speaking in broad strokes, we have to first begin by. I know it sounds almost like a cop out to say this, but we have to begin by conservatives and Christians being galvanized and unified around these issues, understanding why these are the important issues, because it just strikes me that we cannot effectively engage the left on these topics, or really any topics, until we, and when I say we, I mean conservatives and Christians, are all on the same page to begin with. And so we're kind of fighting amongst ourselves. We don't have the same priorities. And that's why we're not able to engage the left, because we're not even on the same. And I think if you got 100 conservatives in a room, so-called conservatives, ask them all, what are the most important things facing America, you get like 75 different answers. And I think a lot of people consider that a good thing, and they say, well, that's we're all free thinkers and everything. But it also shows that we don't know what our priorities are. We're not on the same page, and so it begins at least with that. And that's one of the primary reasons I wrote the book, is to explain to quote unquote our side why these issues are important.
So I've probably followed you actually probably for 3 years since your website really took off. And I've always, whenever I read you, I've always benefited greatly from what I've read about you. But I've always seen you've been very articulate and critical but I've always felt like you've been maybe a little lacking on solutions. What is you do a great job analyzing kind of this unholy Trinity, but then I want to hear like, well, the solution is this, galvanizing conservatives. Well, I mean, every Republican who's run for president has tried to do that. It seems like there has to be something deeper beyond galvanizing conservatives to really take root and change, fundamentally change everything. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, I know what you're saying, but when people say, well, we need solutions, this is one of the, I think, and it's going to sound strange, but in some ways, it's like, well, let's skip ahead to the solutions. I think that's the wrong approach. That there's not like some strategy that we can all employ. No, everything's better now. That doesn't exist, and anyone who sells it to you is lying. And I've heard a lot of people, well, this is the solution. No, it's not the solution. And I really do believe it begins with how in the world are we supposed to effectively do anything when you have a great many conservatives and Christians who don't even understand that it's important to protect marriage and don't even know what the arguments are in favor of it.
Yeah, right.
They don't even know and now we move on to gender, and you have a lot of conservatives and Christians are just hands off on this issue. It doesn't even matter. So I cannot see any way forward unless we first begin by understanding these are it. These are the issues. You need to care about these issues. Yeah. And then once we're on that same page, I think the next solution, which is long term, and again, we're not flipping a switch, but the next quote unquote solution is generational. We lost the culture over the course of generations.
That's right.
And so the real quote unquote solution is when we all raise our kids and our families in this truth, to be warriors for truth. And then maybe over the course of several generations, we can, quote unquote, win back the culture. But if anyone's looking for a solution that's going to take effect in the next 5, 10, 15 years, it doesn't exist.
Well, yeah, that's right. That's right, man. I don't think we got here just in the last 5 or 15 years. Yeah. So their solution definitely can't be a 5 or 15 year answer, right? It's something that's going to start and have to take root in those next 5 or 15 years. But one of the things that I really loved about your book is chapter 8. And this kind of keeps in line with solution and answering the problem. But chapter 8 to me is almost like somewhat of a roadmap, maybe. And I don't know if you wrote that to be that. And chapter 8 is the insanity of transgenderism, right? But the slower title is How Minuscule Minority Bent the Culture to Its Will. And when I read that, I was like, well, like it is a minuscule minority, and yet they were able to bend the conscious culture, even Christians, to their will, really, to be sympathetic to them. And I'm trying to figure out how did they do that? Explain to me how that minuscule minority culture was able to do something that we're trying to figure out how to do as a larger culture. How did they do that?
Well, I think they began, and that's why, life, marriage, and gender, I list it that way because I think it also is in order of sort of importance, but also it's chronological that the assault began on redefining human life, and they moved on to marriage, then gender. And I think it had to work that way, that they sort of were preparing the soil, I guess you could say, for this last seed that they planted, and they couldn't have done it. So the quote unquote transgenderism has existed, at least the word or the concept has existed for decades, but it didn't really catch on until after what a lot of conservatives thought was the final thing when the liberals won the issue on marriage. It didn't catch on until after that, and I think there was a reason for that, because they'd already established, for one thing, that, listen, human life is relative. Human life is relative to how convenient that life is to those around it. Marriage is relative to your appetites and your desires. And once that's been established, then sure, gender is relative, of course. And the other thing that they had also established on top of relativism is this kind of emotionalism. This whoever's most emotionally invested wins. Whoever feels the strongest is automatically right. And many Christians have been buying into that for a long time, and so I think that's what it came down to. They used a lot of the same arguments they made with gay marriage. Look, this is what we want to do. It's what feels right for us, and who are you to tell us that it can't be this? And so they set the stage, I think, that way. And once it was set, it was relatively easy, I think, to move on to this.
But how did they do it as a minority? I mean, why would anybody? How do you take power as a minority when you don't have any power at all? You get to push an agenda to the majority of people who don't agree with you, and yet you're still able to bend. It's like the tail wagging the dog. What was the strategy in that?
Well, listen, they've been they're in the minority on all these issues. Let's remember that. Yeah. Gay people are in a vast minority, and even on an issue like abortion, it's a minority of the country, a small minority that feels strongly like we have to be able to kill babies. There's a very small minority of radically pro-abortion people, and most people are sort of in between. To go either way on it, but I think that's how they do it. It's by creating this environment of kind of apathy where they're not going to win you over to their side. They're not even really trying to. They're not trying to convince you of this. All they're trying to convince you is that you shouldn't care. It doesn't affect you. And if you do care too much, then you're a bigot. And just care, just focus on your own life and your own thing. And that's all they have to do is just, with the majority of people, just do your own thing. Don't worry about us. It doesn't affect you. And that, I think, has been the most compelling argument that they've made, that the other things, and this is why I go back to galvanizing uniting conservatives, because that's an argument that conservatives have not come up with an answer to. On all these issues, they say, doesn't affect you, why do you care about it?
Right.
And rarely do I hear any conservative actually answer that question. Usually they'll say, yeah, they'll either agree with it or they'll try to move on to another argument. But that's the argument that wins for them every time.
Yeah.
So we have to be able to explain why this stuff matters and why it does affect you and why you should care. And we haven't done that, and I think that's how they've won.
How does transgenderism affect us? So because I think a lot of times is that we hear this and then it's like, okay, how do we respond back to them when they're saying, no, listen, Matt, it doesn't affect you. I just want to be this way. What is me being this way? How is that going to hurt you in any kind of way? Right. And you say,
well, I would say two things. The first is, it affects me the same way that if you tried to say, hey, we're going to come up with a new system of geometry and we're going to start calling circles triangles from now on. And it doesn't, just let us do it. This is what we want to do. Just leave us alone. We're going to call circles triangles. And for the most part, I could go about my day and go to the store and live my life. And the fact that circles are triangles really wouldn't necessarily creep up on me. But after a while, it does, it kind of, if you're trying to, for instance, like build buildings with that idea in mind, that's going to be a problem when you don't understand geometry and you're building buildings. And one of these days, I'm going to be in one of those buildings that you built with this new geometry. It might fall on my head. And so then it's going to start to affect me in a real physical kind of way. So I think it begins with it does affect us all, whether or not we live in a culture that understands basic truth. Truth is something we all have a stake in that. We all exist in truth. And so we all have a stake in it, and it's all of our business. The truth is all of our business. And I think if we start to ignore the truth, and on a practical level, at first, it won't affect us practically, but then inevitably it always does, because once you start constructing institutions and building your society around these falsehoods, eventually that will start to affect you in a real practical way. And so we've seen a lot of falsehoods that they told us wouldn't affect us, have affected us by the effect that they've had on the family, by breaking down the family, by the school system, by government. All of these institutions are built around these falsehoods, and then they start to affect us in a way that we can't ignore. And so I'd say those, that's kind of how it works.
Yeah. Toby, did you want to jump in on here?
Yeah, I was going to say, it seems like back to the question about solutions, and maybe this is what you're getting at, Matt, with galvanizing Christians, is it seems like the minority has successfully shamed Christians.
They got answers, right?
We've become embarrassed. We're embarrassed of the truth. We're embarrassed of Christian morals. We're embarrassed of these things. And so that's how they've successfully maneuvered us. And so we're apologetic. And I was just having lunch a few minutes ago with an Iranian friend of mine. I grew up in Iran. I grew up in Islam. Is in America now. Is not a Christian, but I eat lunch with him, and he knows I'm a Christian pastor, and he says, Toby, you need to tell your people to stop being ashamed. Tell your people to stop being ashamed.
Wow.
And this is a non-Christian guy who grew up in Islam, has completely repudiated Islam, but isn't really particularly religious. And he says, the problem with America, the problem with, all this culture war stuff, he says Christians are ashamed. They've been cowed into being quiet. And you need to tell them to stop being afraid. And I think that's one of the things, Matt, about your writing in particular. You take a lot of flack, I think, for being bold.
Yeah.
And saying it how it is and not really caring if it hurts somebody's feelings. Yep. Do you agree that itself is important? It's not just the message itself, but it's also how we say the message.
Yeah, and on the thing you talk about shame, I do think that's a huge part of it. But I also think another part of it, we talked about apathy. I think there are a lot of Christians who aren't ashamed; they just don't care. And
absolutely, yeah.
And not only don't care, but they don't understand. In the discussion, there's also a problem of nobody reads anymore. Nobody has any curiosity, any intellectual curiosity. So a lot of they don't care, and they don't know. You ask the average Christian, oh, why does the Bible say this about marriage? They couldn't tell you. They couldn't even begin to explain why it matters.
Yeah, that's right.
But I think maybe that process begins with shame. People start being ashamed, and eventually they stop caring. And I think one of the reasons why we're so ashamed of our faith in this culture is that we've bought into this notion that we've been taught over the course of decades now that faith we have to compartmentalize it, and it's just an aspect of your life. It's a private aspect, and everyone says, what are the two things you don't talk about in polite company, religion and politics?
Right.
When any interesting person I've ever known, that's like the only thing you ever talk about.
That's right. That's right.
Right. When you add sports into that, and those are the only three things I ever feel like talking about. But that's what we've been told. This is a private thing. Keep it to yourself. And when it used to be different, and we used to, and it's not like we lived in a utopia, but when you had when the West was a Christian civilization, faith was just a deep ingrained part of the culture, and your religion was everything about you, and you lived according to it, and society was structured that way. But once you start telling, well, it's a private aspect of your life, it's like what you do in the bedroom kind of thing.
Right.
Then that's when people start feeling ashamed, and we're also seeing the weird reversal where your religion is it's like we should treat it like a thing you do in your bedroom and not talk about. But the things you do in your bedroom, now you can talk about that in front of anybody. So
and people need to pay for it.
I think kind of things.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Things.
Yeah. So let me maybe appear to change the topic just for a second. Let's pretend this. Matt, me and you are friends. We go way back now. We go way back 15 minutes all of a sudden. And you're writing. You're talking to the public. You're trying to embolden people. You're being serrated and cutting for a reason. I get that, and I think you're hitting your target for the most part pretty well. But let's say I'm your friend, and I feel like I'm changing. I feel like there's been something burning inside me, and I feel like I'm a black Jamaican person, and that's who I'm.
And he's not, Matt. He's actually really white.
I'm white.
He's
let's
white.
say, hey, man, I'm a black Jamaican person, and you're my friend.
Don't do that. Don't do that, please. Okay.
But so what do you say to your friend versus what you say in your writings? How do you handle that situation?
Yeah, obviously, I think that's people say that to me all the time. Like, well, would you talk to your friend this way? And no, of course I wouldn't, because it's a different. When you're talking to thousands of people, it's very different than when you're talking to someone one-on-one. You have to adjust your message depending on the environment. Of course, I think that used to be pretty obvious. But if I was talking to a friend if I was talking to a friend who came to me with something like this, I would tell them that the message that I would send used to be popular message is really one of self-acceptance. Like that's not who you are. This is who you are, and that's a beautiful thing. It's a great thing. It shouldn't bring you any despair, any embarrassment. This desire to be something other than what you are is something that comes from self-hatred, and you shouldn't hate yourself. You should love yourself. So what we're talking about is a message of self-love, and I think that concept of self-love has been way perverted and twisted. to become this kind of selfishness. But there is a truth there that we should love ourselves because we're all created by God. And
I feel like that's where you're kind of getting to. Is one of the things you said in your book was we need to get at what truth is in all this. I was watching Hillary Clinton today. She was giving her Wellesian commencement speech, and she said in her commencement speech that there's an attack on truth. I'm like,
sorry. Yeah,
I'm
sorry.
like, if anybody that can't claim there's an attack on truth or thinks that there's an attack on truth, it can't be the Democratic Party. They, it's like your Unholy Trinity is a good example of this. They are happy to change the definition of marriage. They're happy to
change the definition of life.
They believe the world's 4.6 billion years old. I mean, you go down the list, and they just take one untruth after another and swallow it whole, and then it runs down even a farther hill and rolls to the bottom. So I think truth and what God's word has for us in all this is like the solution that gets past our feelings of even. I understand what you're saying about kind of loving yourself, but you can only truly love yourself because Jesus is true, and he died for your sins so that you can love him first and then love your neighbor, which obviously includes you. Does that make sense?
Right, exactly. And that's the if I was asked, I'm saying if I was asked this question, someone that transgender, something like that, that would be my message, that you were created by God this way, and it's not like, and there's a unity there. So it's not like your soul is trapped in your body, like it's like your body's some sort of shell, but in fact your body is you as well as your soul. There's a unity, harmony that exists between the two. Mm-hmm. And God gave you that, and it's a beautiful thing. And because God gave this to you and made you who you are, that's why you should love yourself. And that's love begins with God, and that's why we should love anyone, including ourselves, because they were created by God, and that's what God wants us to do.
Amen. Yeah.
Of course, if we're talking, if someone comes to you and they're secular and they don't believe in God, and they come with these questions, then it becomes even more difficult because we're not, it's, and this is one of the problems with living in such a secular culture is that we're not starting from the same starting point at all. So we don't have any common ground, way to connect with each other.
Well, there is a starting point. They just deny it, right? There is a starting point. They just deny it. Like
there's a starting point, but if you're talking to someone who fundamentally denies that starting point, but you're not arguing about the starting point, you're arguing about something further down the road. Well, it's hard to engage with them about the thing further down the road without first starting by arguing over the starting point. But then you've lost sight of that thing. So every argument just becomes an argument over whether or not there's a God, and you can't move on and talk about anything else. But that's sort of inevitably how it works, and. Right.
Which is I guess that's where I'd like to move the debate back there. It's like, well, you can't even say what's right and wrong because you believe in no God. You believe we're just stardust. You believe we're just people fizzing. We're just chemical reactions. So who cares what you think and who cares what I think? It's like the presuppositionalist argument. It's like, let's get to the basis of all this.
Yeah, and that's why I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, what's your hope with this book, and what do you think? What do you hope is next? If this takes root, people read this, people are galvanized by this. What would you hope would be the result, and what would you hope would be next following this?
Next, like in the culture, or for me personally?
Running for president.
Both.
Well, my hope with the book is kind of what I've been saying, and I've been very, I've been thrilled, honestly, by a lot of the reaction I've gotten to the book from people who have said, that this book, it stirred me, it made me realize that these are the important issues, and it equipped me to go out there and engage in these things. And I've had a great number of people have told me that, they went into this book not agreeing with me. Maybe calling themselves conservatives, so we have a little bit of agreement, but not agreeing with me on these issues, and they came out agreeing. And so that makes me feel good. But I don't think that this book is going to change the world or anything. It's going to solve all the problems. I'm not claiming that. Although I guess if it could change even one person, it has changed the world in some way. As far as what's next, and I generally, culturally speaking, I try to. Although it may not seem like that sometimes, I try to be hopeful, and I am hopeful ultimately, like I talk about at the end of the book, that ultimately, we all know, we know what happens in the long run. We know that truth wins and God wins. And so that's where our hope lies, is in that knowledge. But at the same time, we have to balance that with being realistic about where we are right now and where maybe we'll be in the next 10 to 15 years. And I don't see, I think we're on sort of a downward trajectory in our culture, and I do think it will continue. We're on this so-called, the proverbial slippery slope. We're on it.
Yeah, right.
And I don't see anything that's going to stop that slide right now. I think there's some kind of rock bottom we're going to hit as a civilization. I don't know if we're there yet. I don't think we are. Eventually we'll be there. And the question will be, at that point, can we rebuild from there? And as I said, if we're going to, it's going to be a generational struggle that has to begin at home. So that's why I'm always saying to people in my generation, like, get married, have babies. Nobody really says that anymore, but that's one of the reasons I say it, is like, if we're going to win back the culture, we need numbers. So get out there and make some little culture soldiers.
Amen.
The Unholy Trinity by Matt Walsh. Make sure you go to Amazon and pick that up. Matt, thank you for joining us on Cross Politics. You're a Catholic, right?
I am, that's correct.
Oh, man, next time you come on the show, we're going to have to talk about that, see if we can get you over to our side.
Yeah, Presbyterian, buddy.
Matt Walsh, the Unholy Trinity.
Yeah, let's set aside a 4-hour class right now.
Let's do it. And the alpacas. We'll talk about the alpacas, too.
Yeah, right.
Hey, thanks for joining us, Matt.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot, guys.
This is Cy Timbergen with Answer Anyone Apologetics. Professed unbelievers like to stump Christians with the question, can God make a rock so big that he can't lift it? Well, no, he can't. There are things that God cannot do. He cannot lie, he cannot change, and he can't contradict himself, to name but a few. Of course, then the professed unbeliever will say, if God can't do those things, then he isn't all-powerful. What they refuse to realize is that those things are not powers, they are weaknesses. To make a rock so big that it can't be lifted would be a logical contradiction. That would be a weakness, not a power, and is therefore something that God cannot do. Of course, they'll likely insist that in order to be omnipotent, God must be able to do the logically impossible. Then I say, okay, fine. A God who can do the logically impossible can in fact make a rock so big that he can't lift it. To which they say, aha, then there's something that your God can't do. He can't lift that rock. And I answer, no, a God who can do the logically impossible can lift a rock he can't lift. And the absurdity of their demand is exposed. When we defend our faith, stick to the true nature and character of God, and you can answer anyone. For more apologetic answers, visit AnswerAnyone.com.
Welcome back to Cross Politic, y'all. This segment is brought to you by Soda Shack. Orange cream soda. Which actually tastes like sherbet. Like you're drinking orange sherbet. I'm serious.
You're going to hit me with this brick, aren't you?
Oh, you know. And y'all know, if you're a regular Cross Politic listener, you've been around for a little while, you know where this drink came from. It's a big can. It's orange. It has a big face of Shaquille O'Neal on it. It tastes like, I don't know, like 3 pounds of sugar.
It tastes like it should be ice cream.
It's 4 pounds of sugar.
Yeah, that would be some good ice cream.
And you know where this came from?
They probably melted the ice cream down and put some fizz in it.
This came from the Chocolate Knox.
Well, I love my brothers. What can I say? I thought you guys should have
Hey, are
some.
we going to make a Kool-Aid label?
It's all right.
You know?
I would make a Kool-Aid
saying?
label. Cross Politic Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
I didn't need my pancreas.
And we'll send a bag of sugar with it?
A 5 pound bag of sugar. Like,
that's right.
Each serving deserves 5 pounds.
This is how Chalk Knox makes Kool-Aid.
Look.
That's hilarious.
When I go to my white friend's house, I bring my own sugar. I ain't lying. I do.
You got your bags of sugar.
Yeah. Right. You think?
Hey, Sharon. Hey.
Hey, baby, go get me that bottle.
Hey, baby.
Is the baby's bottle? No, shh. I'm hiding something inside the bottle. Go get me the bottle.
Oh, man.
Oh, that's hilarious.
You know you love it.
So Matt Walsh.
Unholy Trinity.
Matt Walsh,
Yes.
Unholy Trinity.
Yeah.
It's a good book.
I haven't got to it yet.
It's a good book.
But it was great to talk to him.
It's a good book.
Yeah.
I'm really grateful to have him on the show.
I read it on the plane right out there.
Even though he wouldn't tell us about his alpaca stuff. I mean, he was like totally just shut me down.
Yeah, he did.
Like,
He's
what's up with the alpaca stuff?
Watch your mouth, Toby.
Nothing.
Yeah.
He's like, I felt like he was about to hang up on us.
Well,
like,
because
I'm gonna talk to you about the alpacas.
It's a real deal though. Like it's hard to make money.
Secrets.
You got to have the secrets.
Trade secrets.
And you know what? Like if somebody asks me about the secrets of the soda, I'm not gonna give my Kool-Aid secrets away
Secrets
either.
of the black Kool-Aid?
I'm not gonna give them away. You know, a little lime in there. I ain't gonna tell you what else. But anyway, no, he did shut you down because it's hard to make some money off of alpaca farm. You know? You should know that. You got people in your church alpaca farm, right?
I don't know about it. I don't know about it.
Patch Blakey.
He does.
Elder Patch.
Yeah. No. So what'd you guys think?
You know, I think my biggest I think it kind of came up in our interview a little bit is like Matt is really good at criticizing,
diagnosing the problem, and then having a kind of serrated diagnosis of that problem and giving you good rhetoric on how to maybe even talk about it. But like he's short on, and I think this actually comes from some of his Catholicism. I think he's short on offering solutions. I mean, the biggest solution he really gave us was we need to come together. Roman Catholics are good on guilt, not good on grace.
But I think the biggest
stuck in purgatory.
Oh,
he's dang. Pastor Toby, he been writing jokes over there this whole time.
But I think, but he's absolutely right though on the issues of life, marriage, and gender.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just
in the big fields.
Just hit it right.
Yeah.
He just hit it. It's exactly right. And this goes back to the truth issue.
Mm-hmm.
He's talking about, okay, these are the big, grass is green, sky is blue. These are the big building blocks of reality, the way God has made the world, right? Human life is sacred. It's all right. I'm just talking over here.
Don't worry about me.
The human life is sacred because it is made in the image of God.
Yeah.
Marriage and gender, this is about the way God made the world. One man, one woman, that's marriage. A man is a man, a woman is a woman, and those things are not changing. This is exactly where the modern secularist, godless culture is attacking reality.
Well, and I did
attacking truth.
I did take his point, his chronological point about how this all came into play. Right, abortion happened first, and then you had
that was very good observation.
But I think it was good for kind of like our current last 40 years. But let's back up, and it didn't at all address how the church led the culture to get to where we were at.
Yeah,
right.
That's a good point.
That's the bigger issue. The way I look at it when I think of abortion, when I think of gay marriage, and when I think of marriage between a man and a woman, I think of the church kicked kids out of church, out of worship with the family, long before we had this problem with abortion, long before Roe v. Wade.
You got to flesh that out because that's a hard thing for people to swallow. Explain how it is that abortion became such a common thing and how the church, the cult, led the culture to that.
So that's a big statement, but we got to remember that the church, whatever the church does, culture follows.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the founding premise.
And this is based on Jesus says, "You are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world."
Yep.
Right. If the light is covered, then it's great darkness. If the salt loses its savor, then it's good for nothing.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the people of God. The church of God is the salt, is the light.
Which was the dominating culture of our time.
Right. Yeah. But this is
before our time.
Right.
Before this time.
Which means though, when the church is not being faithful, the world won't be faithful.
So how is it the church has not been faithful and led to the world accepting abortion or America accepting abortion?
So in the last 100 years, there's a movement basically to separate the kids from worshiping with their family.
Yeah.
Right. We had everything from nursery to Sunday school to even little kids' church worship while the kids are listening to big boy worship. I can't tell you how many churches I've been to where maybe the kids are with us in church for the first 10 minutes, and then that's after, and then they're sent out.
Yep.
Or the kids just never even come to church with mommy and daddy. They go to
go off to nursery and Sunday school or whatever.
Yep.
But
while we're doing big boy church. And then lastly, connected to all this, communion.
Oh, okay. So let's take one at a time before you jump to communion.
Right. So this is failing to recognize that throughout the Bible and throughout the church's history, the entire covenant people of God are the army of God.
And they worship together, and they broke bread together.
Right.
And they listened to God's word together.
But you guys don't understand. I come to church.
And I just want to have.
I just want to break. I come to church. I want to hear the service. I want to sit down with my husband.
Yeah.
I just need to break. I can't be running around with kids. They're interrupting the service.
Right.
Matter of fact, other people who don't have kids, will they please take that crying kid out?
Right.
You know, like
and that's happening 6 days a week for the parents.
Right.
But God says that out of the mouth of babes and nursing infants, He has ordained strength. Right. That's the strength of the church.
A Presbyterian would say that.
Not the weakness of the church.
Ooh.
It's the power of the
Amen.
church, not the weakness of the church. Is her children. Her children are part of her power.
So you want me to leave my crying baby in the church and mess up the whole service?
What I want you to do is I want you to love your crying baby and love that crying baby like a saint.
Yeah.
Like,
oh, man. Amen.
Right?
Yeah.
Like the saint that Jesus says that he or she is.
Amen.
Right? And so that means if worship is when the army of God gathers together, old and young, then you can't be letting your little Johnny run the show for 6 days and then walk in to a service on Sunday morning and expect little Johnny to do anything other than what he's been doing for the last 6 days.
Yeah.
And also, too, I want to say, too, as a church, we don't need to make those people feel like they're out of place as well.
No.
Like,
they're welcome in.
Bring a cookie for that baby. You know he's going to be crying that day.
Right.
Like,
yeah, exactly. But if we take this serious, I mean, this goes back to thinking covenantally about our children.
Yep.
So we got to go back and say, well, what is God doing when He gives us children? He's blessing us.
That's right.
He's giving us arrows.
Oh, come on, preacher.
Right? He's giving us arrows, right? He's giving us weapons.
And we got to sharpen those arrows,
Right.
which means worshiping with us.
Right. But that means that you got to be worshiping with your children every day.
That's right. It's more than, and not just that, but also say that how your kids act in church isn't any different than how they're acting at home.
No.
Yeah. Right? Like
it's your report card.
It's exactly
right.
That's exactly right.
It's your report card. So if your kids are used to gathering with you for prayer and to sing and to hear the Bible read, then yeah, I mean they're going to get antsy here and there, and you're going to have to take them out and you have to teach them and so on. Yeah. But they know what they're doing. They're Christians.
That's right.
Right? They know. We get together.
Well, once they make a confession, they're Christians, Pastor. Don't jump all over this. Don't. See, y'all gonna get the cage stage comments now.
Hey, it's comments like you. That's why we get those iTunes.
So,
but I think Gabe's absolutely right.
I agree with them 100%. I'm just trying not to say it because people go on iTunes when I start talking about it and say that I'm a cage Presbyterian.
Right. Come on after us.
Listen, come on,
come
at me, bro.
Come at me,
bro. You know
but let's address the practical.
I was going to say, how does it lead? How does that lead then to that? Therefore, abortion.
We are not receiving the gift of God for what it is, and we're not receiving it for the potent gift that it is.
Yep.
And so when the church begins, birth control.
Yeah. Well, actually, they would say the pushback would be like, no, we absolutely are. That's why we're creating a separate service for them.
Right.
So that they can have something that's tailored that they can grasp.
Right. But I think that's what we're doing. But I think also, there was decades that the church was already, many in the church were already saying, I don't know about kids.
Yeah.
Kids are kind of a nuisance.
Yeah.
They kind of get in the way. I guess I'll have 2, maybe 3.
Well, to use plain language, you abort kids out of worship.
Oh.
Right? What's going to happen? What's going to happen 30, 40 years?
I just gave him a high five because I agree. I'm trying not to say because I'm going to get in trouble. Look, I was at a Reformed Baptist church.
But I think we were also just rejecting the gift. That's what I'm saying, though. Yeah, Even before we sent them out to the service, sending them out of the service is a symptom also of the fact that we're not even welcoming the children. We're getting married and we're like, well, actually, it's more about me.
It's convenience.
And my career and my clean house and my body and all of these other things, and maybe we'll get to kids.
If you want to leave a comment, go to itunes.com, find Cross Politic.
What's your Facebook page, David?
The voice you just heard was Pastor Toby Sumter.
Chocolate not.
And if you want to find me, come at me, bro. Like I'm with that. But I think that's exactly right.
But I think we weren't thinking like this is God wanting to bless us.
Yeah.
He says, "Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth, subdue it."
Yeah.
Right. Fill it
and we don't want to fill our worship. Church,
right.
Our worship with kids.
We don't want to fill our homes with kids.
Yeah.
Oh,
much less fill our church with kids. Right. And so what we're doing is what do? We send them to daycare.
Yeah.
Right. We're not loving them day in and day out. We're not nurturing them as fathers and mothers. And so of course when we go to church, we want to keep doing the same thing.
Right. Well, I think Pastor Wilson made the connection between nurseries, daycare, husband and wife go off to work, they put their kid in daycare, and no wonder you get put in the old fogey homes when you're 65, 70 years old.
Yeah, they're going to put you in the nursery.
Right. No wonder we get in the nursery. We don't get taken care of by our children when we're 70 years old and need help.
Jump to communion. Now, so that's part. So we've basically said, as a church community, children are a nuisance or not valuable. That's ultimately what we're saying, right? They're interfering with our life. They're interfering with our service. They're getting in the way.
And what we're doing,
they're interfering with my worship experience. Is what we're saying.
Right. And we're giving away the power of God.
Yeah.
We are rejecting the potency of the gospel.
Nursing babes is strength.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And this goes to the sacraments.
Yeah.
So all right, we're gonna stand on a chair, and we're gonna whip our shirts around for a second for baptizing our babies.
I'm in.
Are you ready? Are you ready? Okay. So if there's some Baptists out there, you can plug your ears.
You can hit pause. Fast forward.
Email us a memo.
It's only the last 5 minutes of the show.
Have your children, plug their ears.
Email us a memo.
Yeah.
Right. But what we are saying when we baptize our children is we are saying that the gospel, the power of the gospel is in the sovereignty of God. The sovereign grace of God, right? He is the one who initiates. He is the one who saves. And so when we bring our baby who can't talk, and we say, this is the gospel. It's the power of God to save. He loved us first, right?
Amen.
That's how we know love.
Amen.
He loved us first. He's the initiator. And so that's where the power of the gospel is. Yeah. It's found in his power and our weakness.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why Jesus says, of such is the kingdom of God. In fact, you can't come into the kingdom unless you become like one of these little children.
Amen.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Why? Because it highlights his power.
Amen.
All right? But we're rejecting his power and saying, no, we want to be, we got to be big and strong and not be distracted, right? And don't get tied up in all these little kid things.
Right.
And Jesus says, no, stop it.
Yeah.
Right? Let them come to me.
And
this is the kingdom. And it's the same thing with communion.
And yeah, right. And so communion is it's such a funny standard because I let my kids come to my table, but I don't let kids come to Jesus' table. Like, how much more should my kids be at Jesus' table before they come to my table?
Oh, you talking about this paedo communion stuff?
I'm talking this paedo communion, right?
I thought you were talking about weekly communion.
It's a funny standard.
But families don't even eat together.
I was going to say, yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
so it's the same thing. Again, like we don't eat with our kids. We don't love our kids.
Monday through Saturday.
And not at church.
Yeah. But guys, there's no Bible verses. Oh, I'm turned to a Baptist. Look at me. I'm beating the table.
Yes, there is.
There is. Hey, you're going to steal my flask, man.
Now you lost everybody. Now you got drinking going on in the studio.
We were already drinking Shack soda. I mean, how many people have we offended by drinking Shack soda?
All the black people still listening.
There's a bunch of people with scruples. They're like, I signed a card and I said I never drink Shack soda.
Let's move on to marriage real quick. I know we're cutting some of this.
I'm there. Actually. I want to move there.
Yeah, let's move on to marriage real quick. So
and men.
So
I want to kick some men.
We had
right now.
Yeah,
come on. Let me at him.
Get it to him.
The reason why we have all this chaos with marriage is because we had no fault divorce long before we got to this whole marriage debacle. Right. So no fault divorce came in.
We call it a debacle, but it's okay.
Yeah.
What do you mean no fault divorce? What are you talking about?
So I forget what decade. I think it was the 60s or 50s.
I don't know.
Where they basically created a category for no fault divorce, which meant that you didn't have to have a lawful reason to divorce your wife. So
okay, so that happened in the law.
Yep. So it used to be
before that.
Used to be adultery. You had a reason for divorce.
If Christianity is affecting the culture, and the culture is following whatever Christianity is doing, what's happened before that then in the church that would make that
so before we got to no fault divorce.
Yes.
That's a great.
According
to
point. Wikipedia, the first modern no fault divorce law was enacted in Russia in December 1917. There you go.
1917.
What about US?
Really?
A law was adopted in 1969 in California, led by Ronald Reagan.
Oh, great.
There you go.
Was the first U.S. state to permit no fault divorce.
Because Ronald had been divorced before. You remember that?
Right.
Thanks, Ron.
Yeah.
Great job.
Yay,
leader.
Ronald Reagan.
Yay, our champion.
Australia did it in 1975.
Wait, let's answer this question. David brings up a good point here.
Yeah, you're saying
what happened before no fault divorce in the civil arena? What was going on with the church, with marriage before no fault divorce? Toby.
We weren't being men and women.
Yeah.
We weren't being faithful. Right. This is in the 60s right?
69 was
right?
the first.
So,
first
but this is in the decades leading up to this, despite the pretty pictures on TV,
right?
Men and husbands and wives were not being faithful,
and marriages were not being faithful. Happy marriage,
right? You can't go back to the 50s and say we just get back to the 50s.
No, that wasn't good enough.
No, though the reason why all their kids
turned out to be flower children
rebelled in the 60s and 70s is because they saw the hypocrisy.
Oh man,
that's exactly right.
So this is nonsense.
That tree produced a certain type of fruit.
Right,
you can't.
That's the fruit, which tells us exactly what their marriages were like. So they were already being unfaithful. They kept up, I think, more of a show. Of being sort of staying married, and divorce was a lot less common, but it was fake.
Yeah.
And so in the 60s, they're like, let's stop playing. Let's just get divorced and get remarried. Let's just have.
Or let's not get married at all.
Not get married at all.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is also where for the black culture, that's where everything flipped. If you remember, 70% of children in the black family grew up in a two-parent household
up until about the 40s or 50s.
Well, actually, about 50s, 60s,
intact families.
And then 50s, 60s, that number flipped.
Yeah, thanks.
So it went 70% that grew up in single-family homes.
And then remember, in 1973, with Roe versus Wade, one of the fundamental things that was also happening at the very moment that it said it's legal to murder a baby, it also was saying that the father of the child has no say in the life of that child.
No parental rights.
So that ruling effectively broke the family apart as well. Right? The life of a child is only the choice of a mother and between her and her doctor, and not the father.
So back this up. Where did that come into play in the church?
It's the same thing. The man is not taking responsibility for his wife and his children.
Well, yeah, you got
decades.
One of the things too is the work was hard. Men come home, don't engage their families. Right. Like that's
not loving their wife.
That's where feminism creeped in. Right. Feminism creeped in because men weren't being men.
Right. Yeah.
Right. That's exactly where it came in. The men weren't being men. Women said, well, you know what? If you're not gonna be a man, I'm gonna take these things away from you. Right.
Right.
We're gonna start voting now. You know, like all of a sudden, all these things happen.
Right. This is my child, my body.
Right.
You don't have any say with this. Right. But this is all a downstream result of men not being men.
Yeah.
And that's why we live in a culture now that's just full of pushovers. Again, no backbone, no spine, no men.
And I think the big thing we want to leave here with is that this started in the church first.
Right. And this is why we need Jesus. Right? Jesus is the real man, and he's the only one that can take broken and messed up men and make them new.
Until next week, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast. This is Cross Politics.